Hi all, and welcome to my first real video on DCS World. In this one, I'm just basically going to give you a quick rough overview of the cockpit. I'm going to point out some of the key panels and key areas you'll need to understand for when you're basically counting your first challenge when you play the game, starting the damn plane up. So the cockpit itself is divided up into three rough areas. You've got your left panel, right panel, and centre console here. So we'll start just by looking at the center console. So you've got your left and right multifunction display. They do all sorts of things like, display your map, your weapon stores, targeting pod when you turn it on, etc. We'll cover them later. They're not massively important to begin with, out of all the switches you need to understand. And this also basically contains most of the dials you'll need for flying. So you've got your altitude direction indicator here, your ADI, which basically shows how badly you're crashing and a lot of times. You've got altimeters, climb gauges, you've got various engine gauges here. So these first two columns are for the left engine and right engine. You've got something here for your APU, and you've got various other engine dials here, and of course your fuel indicator. Now over the left here we've got landing gear. Normally when you land, those green lights go out when you brake the landing gear. Gear lever, flaps there. Key other things to look out for here, this is your armament control panel, armament HUD control panel, HCP. This is where you've basically got various buttons for turning on the fun stuff like the guns and the targeting pods, etc. The other one I'd just like to point out is down here. If I pull this joystick out of the way, because this one was a pain for me to find at first, you've got here's called the NIMSIP, is the kind of slang for NMSP, Navigation Mode Selection Panel. Again, it's just a wealth of acronyms down here, but you will have to activate these buttons for various navigation systems as you get in the game. Just give you an idea how detailed the sim is, down here are the circuit breakers. God knows what you're going to do with them. It scares me, the thought of circuit breakers. Of course, up here you've got your HUD, standard kind of HUD. You should be seeing it. You've got here's your airspeed indicator. This side is the altimeter, waypoints. If you've got weapons armed, etc., the information kind of gets displayed here. Shows your angle of climb. Generally, when you're flying, I use this more and more. I used to sort of use the ADI, but I found that wasn't quite great. The HUD was much better. The other thing I do want to point out, and it's another acronym that got me, is your upfront controller, your UFC. That's this thing here. You use it a lot later on once you actually start programming systems, putting in numbers, etc. But it's worth just being aware. That's called the UFC upfront controller, and it's there, right in front of you. Funny enough. So now we'll take a quick look at the left panel here. So you've got a bunch of knobs back here you won't really use. VACSUIT test, ground safe, doesn't really come into it. Key ones you'll start to use sort of quite early on. This one here is the intercom panel, but the key thing about this is it's got various volume controls for different systems. So for instance, I've got the ILS turned on just now, but it makes an annoying beep, so you can just mute it on here so you don't have to listen to it. This section here are the radios. So I think I'll get this right when I see AM, UHF and FM, hopefully. I think I got that right way around. I don't use them much personally yet because I'm not playing multiplayer, but they are all tunable, and there's a whole other video that'd be really needed, I think, to go through radios. Other key things you'll need to be aware of is here, this is your throttle panel, but behind the throttle, unfortunately you can't really see it from here, are a couple of key controls. You may hear the letters A, C and radar, altimeter. They are tucked behind the pedal. You can select them through the pedal, you just have to kind of hunt around for them with your mouse till it goes green, and there you can see you've got the AC switch. They are there, and this also covers your autopilot. This panel here is mostly to do with fuel. I think more of this comes into being when you're actually doing air-to-air refueling. Currently I just switch on the boost pumps and off it goes. The other one, probably worth a quick mention here, is the SAS. It's like a stabilization system, I believe. You turn it on before you take off. Not 100% sure what it does, don't know when it would turn off, but that's something I'm hoping to learn as I go on. And you've also got down here emergency flight controls, so if your rudder, your controls get completely shot out, you can still fly the plane using these apparently. How you managed to avoid crashing and into fiery death into the ground beforehand is beyond me. Now, over the right hand panel, here are all the warning lights. So when things go wrong, this lights up. If I do a quick signal lamp test, you'll be able to see. So there we go, we can see them all lit up. If I do that, and I need to turn that off because it's rather annoying. You've got, here's your navigation computer. This is also displayed up here on this multifunction display just now. You can sort of access it from both ways, but sometimes, I believe in the future, you need to start putting in grid references, etc. You can enter them in here. Here you've got electronic power. So you'll use this for your APU when you're on the ground. Just briefly, the APU is, hopefully it stands for, and I've got this right, auxiliary power unit, and it basically gives you another source of power before you've got the engines turned on, so you can start powering up. Here is the countermeasure system. I've really not dug into that too much yet, I just turn it on and let the autopilot deal with it. You've got oxygen system here, and now here you've kind of got a bunch of, for want of a better word, life support controls, so things like the pilot heating, windshield defoggers, etc. Yes, apparently you do need to use that kind of thing in this sim. I've not flown a mission yet where I've needed to defog the windshield, but who knows. And back here you've got the lights, so this controls lights, light brightness, so like for instance the ones in the wings are controlled from there. You've got various back panel lighting. If you're flying at night it gets very trippy, it's very nice looking. And finally here we've got a couple of navigation systems. The two you can use are the TAC and the ILS. I'm not going to go into them in a big way just now. I've only get to the point where I'm started using them myself. You tune them in, turn the volume off and leave them to it. So that's a very, very rough overview. And it is kind of one of the things with the game, you need to learn this for yourself. I could sit and drone on for ages about some of these bits, because I've spent long enough reading about them myself, but you will learn more if you just look into it and start poking around with switches yourself. The best advice is get a good checklist. I will put a link hopefully to one or two in my next video when I do my startup procedure, and I would recommend just sitting with the checklist in the cockpit and going through it again and again, just trying to start the plane up, finding out where all the switches are. So hopefully that's just a rough overview. Hopefully you'll be able to dig into it a bit more yourself and find out what each of these panels actually do, and hopefully I'll have a few more videos about them as time goes on. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch you all later.